conversation may be monitored or recorded for quality assurance purposes. Okay, we're here. First episode of the Don't Bet Scared Homie podcast. UFC Fight Night Stockholm, Gustafsson versus Smith. All things predictions, betting lines, parlays, DraftKings. We got it all. Everything you want to know. We're here. Yeah, so let's start it off.
All right. So, any hot takes for Gustafsson or Smith? Gustafsson's at minus 315 as of right now. He's a heavy favorite. Not a ton of, the odds makers are definitely pushing it towards Gustafsson. I feel that way as well, but there's a lot of intangibles for both guys. Both of them just got shelled by Jones, and Gustafsson says he's had a groin injury. Smith says he needs to get a bad taste out of his mouth. I don't see a ton of ways for Smith to win. And if Gustafsson can keep his boxing together, I think I'm seeing a 5-round decision, maybe a late TKO stoppage. But minus 315 is pretty heavy for a straight bet.
It is heavy, and vice versa. Smith's a big underdog, so if you're feeling wild, you could go for that. But I like, my big thought has been like how Chael mentioned on that show. Both guys have a lot to prove, and we don't know where they're at, and they're both coming off losses to Jones, so it kind of who's going to rebound better and who's more in their own head about it and who's moving forward more. I think that's a big question. I like some things both guys are saying, and I don't like how Gustafsson's complaining about the groin injury a lot and saying that's why he lost the Jones fight and nobody holds him down, but that's why he got held down. I just don't like seeing guys make that much excuses, but at the same time, I don't like how Smith's saying that he took the Jones loss really hard and he's been super tough to be around, that whole sort of thing. And I also don't like that he's saying that he didn't want to fight for the rest of the year, but then he got this offer and he couldn't turn it down, and he's planning on taking the rest of the year off after that. I think that's a tough mindset to come into a fight with, thinking that this is gonna be your last fight for the year and you just want to relax. Maybe he's already burnt out and he hasn't even trained that hard. But
Ariel.
Also.
Helwani loves that change of heart that he's had in the last 3 weeks and his mindset altogether. But I don't know. For me, the biggest question is who's going to have more volume. If Gustafsson can keep his jab going and just shut Smith down altogether, like John was able to do. Smith scored 18 DraftKings points against John over 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
He had no volume going forward, and if he is in his own head or whatever intangible leads his volume to just fall off the mountain, he's going to have a real hard time hitting Gustafsson.
I definitely agree with that. I don't know if Gustafsson has fought in the UFC in Stockholm more than, I think he fought Manoa there maybe, but I know he definitely lost to Rumble there, and I keep thinking about that, and I don't know. I wonder how he deals with the pressure of fighting at home, or if he gets too excited and makes a mistake. And I wouldn't compare Smith and Rumble's power to be equal at all, but he definitely goes for it sometimes. And if he catches Gustafsson early, he might panic. Who knows? But overall, Gustafsson's got to be the pick. He's proven himself far more. He's been a perennial top contender. He's beaten a lot of good dudes. He smashed Glover. He has a lot of solid wins, and there's not much reason to bet against him other than if it's just not his day and he doesn't perform well and he's got too much going on. So they're both kind of head cases, but I would say Gustafsson's the safer pick.
Yeah, definitely a parlay patter, but for minus 315, you're not going to get a ton out of it. But moving on to the co-main, you have Jimmy Manoa versus Alexander Rakic, and Rakic is at minus 200 right now. I like Rakic. I like his volume. I like his low kick, and if you look at the face-off, he's physically bigger than Manoa. I think Manoa struggles a lot with very technical guys, and Rakic's got a hell of a chin on him. I don't know if anyone watched the Devin Clark fight, but that guy took about 6 illegal knees, got up immediately, and went back to work with his jab. His jab, his low kick, and he also had a slow build in the UFC, beating Barroso and 2 other guys before coming here, so I think he's comfortable. And overall, I think if Manoa can't get in close on him and he can't get around the jab, then I think it's Rakic's fight to win and also get a crazy amount of DraftKings points if you're into fantasy MMA.
I think he's a pretty big favorite on DraftKings. I'd have to look at that, but yeah, he definitely could get a lot of points, but I don't know exactly what his finishing ability is at. And Manoa is certainly a guy that can be finished, but I don't know if Rakic has the style to do it. And he is taller than him, but I'd say Manoa is bigger and probably has a lot more power than him. I think Manoa was getting a little bit older, and he did come into the sport late, but power is the last thing to leave, is what they say. And I mean, it's looking at it, it's the biggest step down in competition for Manoa, and it's the biggest step up in competition for Rakic. So that, like, I don't like seeing Manoa as such a big underdog when he's beaten better guys and hasn't necessarily proved more, but he's been around longer. And I think that being a veteran in the sport does matter. And I don't know in terms of the fans who's going to get the pop or whatever, but I don't think that really matters. I think Manoa has a lot more to prove here versus Rakic is looking at him like a stepping stone, which is dangerous to look at a guy like Manoa as a stepping stone. But I'm kind of a Manoa fan for just his style and how he goes for things, so I'm definitely jaded in my pick, but I like Manoa by a first or second round knockout or TKO, but that's my own thought, and I wouldn't put money on it, but I like the idea of putting money on it.
Yeah, I would say if you're a prop bet type of guy, it would be Rakic outside of the first round for sure. If, Rakic survives out of the first round, I would be slamming the line to see if that'll possible, especially if he gets his ass kicked in the first round. And I expect Manoa to just exhaust him. He's definitely, his cardio's failed him in the past. The other thing is Rakic's over at ATT. Maybe he puts in a wrestling game plan. He did against Barroso. He looked very good on the ground in his earlier wins as well. So that's, who knows if he could hold Manoa on the ground or not. But it's definitely another path to victory that Manoa doesn't necessarily have.
Yeah.
But yeah, minus 200 is a little too thick for my blood, just a little bit. But, I have a feeling that this is a type of card where it's going to be huge parlays and a lot of favorites win.
Yeah, and we'll come back and mention specifically what parlays we think or what one-offs or bets or anything. We're just going through predictions right now. So far we're in agreement on Gus. You like Rakic, I like Manoa. Moving on.
Yeah, next fight is Makwan Amirkhani versus Chris Fishgold. And
Mr. Finland.
Yeah, Mr. Finland. Makwan's minus 110. It's essentially a pick'em fight right now, and I think stylistically this is very good for Amirkhani. I'm not necessarily in love that he had an amateur boxing loss in Finland. I'm not sure how a professional manages to get himself into the amateur boxing scene, but he had 5 boxing events last year. Won 4 of them, lost 1 of them, and then the other one, the opponent fell out and they just couldn't get him another opponent on that event. But, I mean, he's got great grappling, and Fishgold has 13 or 12 wins by submission. And unless, he submits Amirkhani, which I would be incredibly impressed about. But I think Fishgold's style plays into Amirkhani's strengths. Yeah.
I would overall agree with that. I don't know what Makwan's been doing with his amateur boxing or anything like that, but I do like that, if I remember right, he said after the Arnold Allen fight he felt that his striking was lacking, and that's something he wanted to pursue, and I think that that's why he's taken time off, is to get his game in order, because the guy is a great grappler, and I think he used to be on like the Finland or Swedish like wrestling team. He used to do some high-level grappling back in the day, so he's had to round out his game a bit, but I like how serious he takes it. I remember he was like a guy who lived in the gym and just had his PlayStation and did nothing but play video games or train. So I like that kind of mindset. And I don't know much about Fishgold, so I've looked at his record, and I think he only has 1 loss on his record. So he's relatively unproven in the UFC sphere, but guys coming off layoffs is tough. But I like Makwan in Sweden, and I think he's going to get a big pop there, and I would pick him by a safe decision.
Yeah, minus 110, those are awesome odds. I'm actually surprised it's that close and there are that many Fishgold believers.
Good parlay patter for sure.
The goldfish. He's picking against the goldfish. But so then moving on, we got Damir Hadzovic versus Christos Giagos, and I can't pick. I can't pick Giagos. I like Hadzovic, the Bosnian bomber. I've liked what he's put in the past, but I can't get it out of my head. I went to Giagos's Twitter, and his sister got married like 2 weeks ago, and he spent 10 days out of camp in Hawaii, and then he flew into California to train at Black House, and he said that he had jet lag or he got sick from the airport or something. He was just feeling terrible. And that was 2 weeks ago. So he's had essentially a 2 week training camp, assuming he got fat and happy and, enjoyed the wedding and everything. But now he's got to fly across the world to take on Hadzovic, and that guy bombs on dudes. Hadzovic's a minus 170, and I think he's on a 3-fight win streak right now. But he has a TKO win over Marco Polo Reyes, and that was an intense knockout.
Basically ended Marcin Held's UFC career as well, which was a hell of a knockout. But I didn't know anything about the wedding or anything like that, and it could work for him or against him. Like, I know some guys like having excuses going into fights because it gives them less pressure, and then they can immediately point to things. Like, look at Nate with taking shots in Cabo, and Jones saying he would always do that with partying the week of. Like, he had a built-in excuse. So it could, I don't know much about Giagos or what his mindset is like or what his fight career has been like for that sort of thing, but it could be an advantage to him to take some of the stress off, especially I think Hadzovic trains at that All Stars, wherever that gym is in Sweden, so I think he'll probably get a fan pop there, so it could just take all the pressure off Giagos, or it could put a lot more pressure on him. Remains to be seen, but I like Hadzovic. I think he's a solid pick. I think he's a fairly big betting favorite, but I know he's a big favorite on DraftKings, but I like him as a pick.
He's a minus 170 on Bovada.
Okay, not bad.
Definitely not bad. But so I'm definitely in agreement with Hadzovic, but I'm not necessarily in love with the matchup, mostly because I haven't seen a ton of film on Giagos. But I know he's a very tough, top-heavy wrestler. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll definitely see. At featherweight, Daniel Tamor is trying to get off this 3-fight skid against UFC debut Sun Bin Jo. And I watched Sun Bin Jo's last fight with a guy whose name I can't pronounce off the top of my head. But he's got a very good jab. Got his ass kicked over 4 rounds and then turned it around in that 4th round. So he's got great cardio. He's 9-0. And I think he's the type of guy that will frustrate Tamor. Tamor is a brawler, to at least my understanding of it. And Joe could slow it down with his jab and his leg kicks, and I think that this could be a nice 3-round decision for the debuter. Joe's minus 150 on Bovada right now.
Okay. Yeah, I know Daniel Tamor is the brother of David Tamor, and they're both a couple of hothead Thai boxers, and I like that they, like him, and I think I saw David yelling behind Daniel, also yelling at the weigh-ins, and I like the intensity, and I like the brother duo, but he is on a 3-fight skid, I think, in the UFC. It's kind of surprising he got. I think the only reason he probably got another fight is because he's a UK fighter, or they're trying to pad up this card. But if he loses, I'd say he's definitely getting his walking papers. So there's a lot of pressure there, and I haven't seen much about this Joe guy other than I saw someone call him the Korean Sage Northcutt. So he's got that going for him. I saw in a couple of predictions people were saying he should get the better of the striking, but ultimately he does like to hunt for submissions, and that's definitely Tamor's weakness. So if he is thinking about that, I would say it's a solid pick. I'd say the only way he loses is if he gets dragged into a brawl or the fans drag him into a brawl. Who knows? Because I think that Swedish crowd is going to be pretty rowdy, especially early on. And if Tamor's throwing bombs, who knows? We'll see how either guy reacts. But I'd say it's a tough pick to take Tamor right now.
He does call himself Kid Dynamite.
I do like that.
He calls himself Kid Dynamite.
Bold move.
Yeah, very bold for the young Tyson. But Swedish. He's from Sweden, 31 years old. And he's also a Nordic Thai boxing champion.
They both are, yeah.
I don't put a ton of stock into that. I mean, Joanna was an 8-time European Muay Thai champion. So it's unless you win this thing, more than twice, it's hard to put a lot of stock into it.
Yeah, we haven't seen who he fought or what the level of competition was, or we don't know anything about that. But I would say most of the stock is going off his name, that his brother's David Tamor, and that's basically it. But he's going to come out swinging, and who knows what else.
Yeah. I don't have a pick for the headlining prelim fight of Akhman versus Sergey. I don't have any feel for that, mostly because I haven't seen either guy fight, so can't make
I
any.
watched the weigh-ins, and Akman had some impressive body hair, so he's got that going for him. Sergey looked a lot bigger. He looked pretty lean. Is this fight at 170? I think.
It is 170.
Yeah, Sergey looks like a big 170er. Probably cuts a lot of weight, so that could be an advantage for him. I'm pretty sure he likes to. He's a grapple heavy style guy, clinch heavy style guy. And I don't know how well rounded. What's his name? I'm not even.
Rostam Akman.
Yeah, Akman. The only thing I've seen of him is literally from the weigh-ins, which I didn't. I never like when fighters go in with that little tiny boxing shell when they stand off. It looks a little rigid, and I mean, who knows that we're picking randomly here a little bit. This is kind of a somewhat scrubs prelim card, so we'll do our best.
Um, I do feel confident about the next one, Tonya Evinger. She's minus 300. She's at Gustafson odds over Lena Landsberg. If we use MMA math, Landsberg lost to Kunitskaya in her last fight, where Evinger strangled Kunitskaya in her last Invicta fight before taking an L to Cyborg. And also Aspen Ladd as well. She got TKO'd by Aspen Ladd in the first, but Ladd is a honey badger. She's a contender in that division. But I like Evinger. I think if she can get multiple takedowns and a lot of transitions, she's, might be worth that DraftKings, but she's 9,200 on DraftKings right now. And for 3-round women's bantamweight, you would best case scenario, she gets 3 to 4 takedowns, maybe one each round, gets a bunch of transitions, and then gets a third round submission or a second round submission, and maybe she could be on the final winning lineup. But $9,200 is rough.
Landsberg is the queen of elbows, right? I mean, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure I
what
know
is
her
that?
as the, I don't, yeah, I don't know if we've ever actually seen her land these elbows, but I'd like to finally see it. But I think Evinger is a safe pick, especially if you're a prop bet kind of guy. I think Evinger by submission is a decent thing to take. But watching the weigh-ins, she looked like she was in better shape than usual, so she might have had a good training camp. I'm not sure, but I think that Evinger should take this one pretty soundly.
Yeah.
She's a big favorite, so not much to see unless you're looking in DraftKings or you're looking for finishes. I'd say she'll get you a lot of points, or she will get a finish. So.
But Landsberg is, ooh, damn, phone's on. Landsberg is from Sweden. She's 37 years old, and she's also another one of those European Muay Thai bronze medalists, silver medalist, just a perennial world champion. But from Sweden, so maybe the crowd pushes her forward, and you never know what kind of jet lag. I don't know when Evinger flew in. That's the other thing about these international cards is I want to know how long the person has been in the country. If Evinger flew in on Monday, who knows?
I don't think Stockholm's at elevation or anything like that, but it is a big time change and everything. Like I know some fighters like ship their food out because they don't like dealing with like the difference in water and things like that. So yeah, it definitely is more of an adjustment for Evinger, but she's a pro. She's fought for a long time. I don't think that'll affect her that much. I think more so than anything, the crowd will probably be on Landsberg's side, and it remains to be seen how crazy that crowd goes. They're usually pretty good in Sweden, but we'll see.
Yeah. Next, we've got Stevie Ray versus Leandro Santos, another fight I just do not feel good about. Stevie Ray is plus 220 right now. That would be the only real pick I would go for. If you did put a gun to my head, I would probably pick Stevie Ray, mostly because I know Leandro Santos has been fighting injuries. He hasn't fought in 3 years. He does have a win over Kevin Lee, which looks better as the day goes on, but Kevin Lee did just get boxed up and strangled by RDA.
Kind of one of those flash knockouts you can't take too much from.
Yeah, and Kevin Lee was young, very young, and he's definitely improved. He needs some more technical improvement for sure, but it's a good-looking win for one of his last fights.
Yeah, it ages well, especially. I don't think he's ever lost in the UFC. I think more so. I think he's 39 now. I think age and injuries is probably taking a toll on him, and he is a bigger, slower lightweight, at least from what I remember. He kind of just methodical. He has good technique, definitely good jiu-jitsu. So Ray needs to probably keep it on the feet. He is kind of over aggressive sometimes. We'll see. Santos might be able to wrap him up and even get a submission. I don't know, but I do like Ray as an underdog. I think he's going to be going for it, especially if he loses this one. He's probably almost guaranteedly getting cut. So he's got a lot to prove. I like him and Manuwa as one-off underdogs, but they're both guys that could just get steamrolled or rise to the occasion.
How old do you think Leandro Santos is?
I'm
Leonardo.
pretty sure he's 39, and I'm pretty sure Ray's 29. So I think there's a 10-year age gap there, which isn't always like people like to look at the younger guy and be like, oh, they're always gonna win. But look at Glover just over Jan recently. Like there's a lot of situations where the crafty vet just gets another win over a younger guy. But I think that this one is more so of a durability thing. I think Ray's got a lot more durability in the left in him. So I would go Ray, but I'm not putting any money on it. So
39-year-old lightweights are few and far between. That's for damn sure. Then we got Nick Hein versus Frank Camacho. This is a pick'em fight. Both guys minus 115. I like Hein. I like Hein a lot. I don't necessarily love hearing that Camacho just signed a new contract and he's in love with it and everything else. So, he's for all else he's talking, you better go out there and win, really make that contract worth something. But I think stylistically, Nick Hein is just very clinch heavy, very grapple heavy. And I think he's going to put a pace on Camacho. And if Camacho does, he's a brawler. He throws a lot of hooks. But unless he just overwhelms Nick Hein with hooks, I don't see how this fight goes well for him.
I will give Camacho a shout out for being a Reddit user. I like when I see pros actively using Reddit. I know he's got a fan base on there, and I think I saw him post actually like today or yesterday after the weigh-in saying he felt great at 55. So he is moving down. Who knows how that will affect his chin durability, but he did take a hell of a beating in his last fight, and I'm pretty sure he got head kicked ultimately, which is not what you want to see. And Hein tends to fight pretty safe. He's a high-paced guy. He likes to clinch a lot. He likes to shoot for takedowns. He's not particularly aggressive or takes a lot of risks. He can have boring fights sometimes. Like I think he fought Hadzovic and lost a split decision, but it was a pretty just not much going on in that fight. So I would pick Hein to win a decision. I'd say if you're looking for a parlay patter or someone that'll probably win fairly easily, go with Hein, but I wouldn't expect him on DraftKings to get you like a ton of points or it to be like I wouldn't go for pick 'em like submissions or stoppages, or maybe him by decision is a good pick, but I'd say it's pretty safe to go Hein by a decision.
The fight that you were talking about, Hadzovic won by split decision over Hein. But Camacho, that he's 1-3 in his UFC tenure, moving down in weight. It's he's looking for something. He's definitely looking to turn his career around, and Nick Hein is a tough out for anyone. The guy's got cardio for days, and unless he just goes out there and overwhelms him and takes out Nick Hein or hurts him badly in the first round, I think the cardio might fail him going forward. And Drew Dober has a decision win over Camacho as well. And I think Nick Hein is definitely as talented, if not more, than Drew Dober.
We haven't seen Hein's durability tested yet, so that would be interesting to see if Camacho can even do that. But I would say Hein is a okay pick to make.
Okay. Now, looking down the card, these bottom three prelims, I have essentially no picks or knowledge. I know that Darko Stozic, he trains with Mirko Krokop, and when you start thinking Mirko Krokop, you're thinking he's obviously another one of these European kickboxing legends. Wrong. He's a judo guy. And he was helping Mirko Krokop with King Mo. His last fight with King Mo is when he brought him in. So he's a grappler heavy guy, and Devin Clark is also a grappler. He gave Rakic, who was talking about earlier, a pretty scary run, but also aided by about 10 illegal knees as well. So can Devin Clark just, I don't want to say spray the youth all over him, but we'll see.
So Stojic's actually younger than Clark. I'm looking at he's 27. He does look like an old
27. No way. Show me that.
I question a lot of these birth certificates we see, but
it's like 29.
Yeah, he's a
mirror.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently Volkan's 29. I mean, I don't want to get into that too much. Great to put on the tinfoil hat, but Stozic should win. I mean, it shows, like, if you look at the Bovada lines or any big lines, the first four prelim fights are basically pick'em, so I don't think anybody really knows, and it just shows that these are kind of borderline scrub fights that people are just looking to pick a winner in or anything like that. But Clark has had moments of looking good, but he kind of, I don't want to say folds to the pressure, but he fights at light heavyweight, and it's a lot of power. It's tough to put together like a solid career there unless you're really one of the best. You can kind of trade wins and losses. Like he just lost a TKO to Rakic, which isn't any. Rakic is the real deal. I mean, he's fighting Manua, and he lost to Jan by submission, but he has beaten like he lost to Alex Nicholson by KO, which is interesting. I haven't seen that fight, but I would go Stoshik. I don't know much about either guy, but I like from the weigh-ins I saw Stoshik looks like a big dude, so I do like that. So yeah, I'll go Stoshik.
Yeah, I guess I would go Devin Clark just because he's 3-3 in the UFC. He's got the tenure. He's been around, and is this Stozik's debut?
No, he I think it's his second fight in the UFC. I know he KO'd Jeremy Kimball in his last fight, so I think that was in the UFC on a prelim.
Jeremy Kimball. Oof.
Yeah.
No disrespect to the Kimball, but
yeah, doesn't exactly prove much, but
win.
we've seen less of Stoshik, so he's not quite as known of a commodity.
So I guess, do you have any parlays or DraftKings teams that you would recommend or push for?
It is worth noting there's that I think Bia Malecki is a big local favorite there. I'm pretty sure she's from Sweden, so she's even odds right now, and I don't know much about Eduardo Santana, but when it comes to those fights, I tend to lean towards the local guy. There's no real reason why. I think that more often than not, you see the local fighter get it done.
They're there to put butts in seats early, get everyone, all the fans to show up, get the locals in, and get the arena loud. This kind of
Joel Alvarez, Danilo, Beluardo. Don't know much about those guys. It's a lightweight fight. I think Alvarez might be a slight favorite, but I couldn't tell you why. I wouldn't even pick on that fight. So, I mean, I would say avoid those first four prelims unless you're really looking to go for like a 10 or however many fights it is. If you want to go all fight prelim, then you got to make some tough picks. But I'd say otherwise avoid those odds.
And there's not a lot of film on any of these guys, so I had a real hard time trying to find any sort of footage on these guys other than Devin Clark, who's got 6 fights in the UFC. But no real hot takes on the bottom of the prelims. But if you were looking, I'm on Bovada right now, if you were looking for a nice, safe parlay, you could put together Gustafsson, Makwan, Hadzovic, Evinger, and Sunbin Joe. Turn your $5 to $40, and then you can add Rakic to turn that $5 into $60. And if you're going to go down my list of suggestions of 7 fights, Rakic, Gus, Makwan, Hadzovic, Evinger, Joe, and Hein, that's $5 to, let's see, 121.
It's not bad.
So that's not bad at all. Very safe, all favorites. But, they're favorites for a reason, but one of the reasons we love MMA is favorites lose as well.
And it's basically everybody has a 50% chance of winning. So it's always tough to make. I tend to, at least in my experience of betting, go less than 6-man parlays unless I feel like I just know the card dead on. And the bigger cards are easier to pick. But this one, I'd say look for the dogs that are there and otherwise pad up a parlay with a lot of safe ones. If you're a big money guy, like you like to put a lot of money on one fighter, I'd say Manua is a good pick for that. I mean, it's kind of risky, but he's at almost 2-to-1 odds right now. So if you put down $100, you'd get about 260 back total, something like that. So that's a good day at the bank if you're just making easy bets. Stevie Ray is also another one like that, a good one-off. In terms of actual parlays, I'd say that I like to go for kind of dog favorite combos, which can be risky, but if you went with Manua, Hadzovic, Evinger, and Ray, that would be $20 to get you 270 some back, so that's pretty sweet. Other than that, I'm more of the one-off guy for this kind of card, or you could put together like Ray or Manua or put Mach 1 in there. Mach 1 I think is even odds right now, which I like for actual betting terms. So it's a tougher card to bet on, but there are some good parlays if you want to be somewhat safe with it.
Yeah, exactly. Looking over at DraftKings, I probably won't put any DraftKings lineup in just because trying to balance out the points and everything. Like, Tonya Evinger is 9,200. There's a huge spread in the value of each fighter. So unless, maybe toying with putting Gustafson and Smith in, if you think Smith can get 40 or 50 points himself, and Smith is 6,900 bucks right now, so you could put both guys in. It's tough to take a loss, especially at the end of the card. But if Gustafson wins and he puts together a lot of volume, and Smith can get some transitions or in the clinch, or he can land some sort of significant strikes, it might be worth doing, and then you can free up space for some of the bigger favorites on the card that you like. But
I will say I don't usually like going with the picking a loser right away, but this is one of those cards that's tougher to pick. So if you wanted to free up some cash and go with more favorites, it'd be a safer pick to go Smith and Gustafson because you're getting 5 rounds of points. I think, like you said, Smith only got like 18 points against Jones in a 5-round fight for DraftKings. So I mean, it could be tough, but I would say that's if you want to be safer, do something like that. But in my own looking at DraftKings, I had put together. I'll say with DraftKings, I think the best way to do it is to pick a lineup you don't think anyone else is going to pick, because if you pick a lineup and then 1,000 some other people have it, cool, you're going to split all that cash with those guys if any of you guys win. So you don't always want to fill up your lineup with like max out the cash. That's kind of what I think everybody tries to do, and that limits your lineups a little bit. I looked at some of them, and I mean, if you want to go crazy, you can do a lot of dogs. Like Macwan's even a dog. Ray's a big dog. What else is a big? There's a Manwa was a big dog, one of the least expensive. So I mean, I'd like if you put Manwa in, that would free up a lot of cash. Like I did one where you had Gustafson, Evinger, Hadzivich, Manwa, and Hine, and
maybe put
Ray.
there, substitute Hine for Mach 1.
Yeah, exactly. You could alternate a couple ways. Like I also went with one where I avoided the main event altogether and went with like Amir Khani, Hadzivich, Hine, Sergey, Manwa, and Stoshik, and that took up all the salary. So there might be some people going for that, but I do like. I'll say in my experience with DraftKings, a lot of people pick the main event, especially I'm guessing a lot of people have Gustafson in their parlay. A lot of people will probably have Evinger. She's more of a known commodity. There'll just be certain favorites you'd want to avoid. You just kind of want to make it unpredictable. So if you're trying to win the big money on DraftKings, go for a lineup you don't think people will pick. Otherwise, just keep it safe and avoid maxing out your cash, because that's an easy way to match a lot of lineups.
This is a card that's in the middle of the day if you're stateside, so you're either going to have a really rough day going forward at like 2 o'clock. If you put in a parlay, it gets busted at 10 a.m., that's going to ruin your day. Or you're going to have a nice Saturday night with your newfound parlay cash.
Sure. I will say a lot of the dogs that I like are in the prelims, at least. I guess really the only one I would go for would be Stevie Ray, so that's not necessarily true. But there are a lot of good picks to make in the prelims, so you could have your card out of the way early. But I like Manuel a lot. I like Ray as a potential dog. It's a tough card to pick, especially like where everybody's thinking Gustafson's the guy in this, and that's a tough pick to make as such a big favorite. They're both kind of unknown commodities right now, Smith and Gustafson, but I'd say you'd have the best luck on DraftKings going with Gustafson points-wise. So that's about it in terms of parlays and DraftKings.
You want to say anything about Ozdemir and Latifi? It's now pulled out to a back injury.
Disappointing. I would have lean towards Latifi probably, just because we don't know much about Volkan's grappling. I think he's another one of those guys that got into the sport late, and I'm not sure how much he even trains wrestling seriously or tries to do that sort of thing. I think he's one of those guys that just tries to bomb and not even engage in grappling, which is never a great strategy for being a top contender, but it is for putting on a show, and I mean, Manwa does a similar thing. So kind of disappointing. Definitely cuts down an already weak card, but do question Volcan being 29. I'll just put that out there lightly, but
No, I was upset that that fight fell off because I was confident in Latifi. I like his grappling style. It's just I look at that DC fight and Ozdemir looked so lost in the clinch and the grappling exchanges with DC. I mean, DC crucifixed him for a TKO. You know, DC can do that to anybody. You know, DC's got crazy wrestling, but I mean, Latifi was also an Olympic wrestler, to my knowledge, very successful. He's built like a tool shed. You know, if he gets double underhooks on Ozdemir, he was going to go for a ride. You know, Latifi's not the best at holding people down historically, but that would have been a fun DraftKings play if he had gotten multiple takedowns and then like a third round finish or something like that, because Ozdemir's cardio falls off a mountain come the second or third round. I mean, that's what happened with the Anthony Smith fight, it happened in the DC fight. Just hasn't proven much in terms of his cardio. But I think that's also a product of him just swinging for heads in the first round, trying to knock their head into the bleachers. But yeah, hopefully we can make some money this weekend.
Yeah, I'd say this is a tough one to pick on, so don't give us too much shit if we're completely wrong about everything. We'll come back. We'll provide for you guys at some point. But we like to make bold picks, at least I do, and it pays off sometimes. We'll see. I'd say looking forward, you have Cejudo Moraes. Is that next weekend?
I'm going to be there.
You will be there. Attendance. So don't give him too much shit if you see him, if he's totally wrong at all these picks this week.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. Yelling at me during the prelims.
Real quick, I'd say I like Cejudo in that fight. I don't see much of a route for Moraes to win. I mean, yeah, he takes a lot of risks, and he's got nice head kicks, and he's just brawls. But I mean, Cejudo's been there, done that. He's takes his career very seriously. I think doesn't like to lose, wants to be the best. If you didn't know, he's an Olympic gold medalist.
Really? Is he one of the younger ones too?
I think he's actually the youngest Olympic gold medalist in U.S. history. I didn't know that until just now, but I think I heard that somewhere.
Yeah, it's probably an Instagram comment from Cejudo himself.
I think that could be right.
Okay. We'll be back next week for picks on that card. That one's a little bit more entertaining.
Back next week. Feel free to tell us anything you'd like us to change, comment, concern, tell us we suck, tell us we're ugly, tell us we need to knock the fuck out, tell us whatever you want. We don't care. First episode of the Don't Bet Scared Homie podcast on tape. There you go.
Bet smart, but never scared.
There you go.
Boom. Scared. All right. That.